Don't look now, but it looks like the Astros are getting the band back together, and they could go very far this October.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube page. And if you leave a comment, a message, a complaint, an insult anywhere on any of the social media sites, make sure to leave that hashtag EverydaySully. It helps us find you, and we will find you and read your stuff on the air because you know what? It's fun to do that. This episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, let's go to the trivia question. I didn't do a show the other day because we had the group squadcast going on, and I don't like to interfere with that one. There is a little preview of a show I'm going to be doing this upcoming week because we talked a little bit about the MVP race, and some people took umbrage the fact that I felt that as of now, I would vote for Aaron Judge to be the MVP, but it's definitely a race with Cal Raleigh. A bunch of Mariner fans thought I was out of my mind because obviously, why would I put my vote for Aaron Judge as he's leading almost every category except for home runs and RBI? But then again, Cal Raleigh is leading the league in home runs and RBI and is the best defensive catcher in the game and arguably the best defensive player in the game. So it's going to be an interesting September. In a couple of days, it's going to be September, and I do think the MVP race is going to boil down to what happens in September. But that's going to be in an upcoming show. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The trivia question was who threw the first no-hitter in Milwaukee Brewers history? And it's weird. I got a couple of people guessing Johan Santana, which would be huge news because he played as many games for the Milwaukee Brewers as I did. But and yeah, Jackson Van Hooser, he was one of the ones who said Johan Santana. Um, I don't mean to poke fun at you, Jackson. What are you going to do? But it was Ryan Angle, 6'2", 6'4", was one of the ones who got it correct. The first Brewers no-hitter was Juan Nieves back in April of 1987. Robin Yount made a tremendous catch to preserve the no-hitter. This happened at Old Memorial Stadium. You got that one right. I went to Old Memorial Stadium. I've never been to Camden Yards, but I went to Old Memorial Stadium. My sophomore year of college at NYU, I knew they were going to be tearing down Memorial Stadium, or at least moving out of it, and I wanted to see a game there. So I took a train from New York to Baltimore and checked that off the list. And for whatever reason, I've never made it to Camden Yards. And why did I put the emphasis on Cam? Who won baseball the other day? Dansby Swanson drove in 6 runs with 3 hits, homering twice. Cubs took the 11-7 slugfest from the Rocks. Nolan Jones sparked a tremendous comeback by Cleveland. He had a key home run and then doubled it in the 9th inning game-winning rally. Cleveland won over Seattle 5-4. Freddie Peralta struck out 8 Blue Jays, and the Brewers won that one 7-2. And Cristian Javier, we'll get back to him in a little bit, through 6 no-hit innings, striking out 6, and he's recovering and really just putting his thumbprint on the Astros rotation. And it was a tight game, 2-0. Javier actually didn't get the victory, but he got the wob. Half wobs. Bryce Elder was great, but the Braves lost to the Phils. George Kirby was phenomenal for the Mariners, but their bullpen collapsed. Otto Lopez went 4 for 5, but the Marlins dropped a 19-9 slugfest. And Ryan Mountcastle got 3 hits and drove in 4, but the Orioles lost on Apple TV to the Giants. I was going to give it to Mike Yastrzemski, who had a terrific game for the Royals, but he also had the biggest boneheaded moment of the night. The Royals were rallying, and Yastrzemski was the tying run at the plate in the bottom of the 9th. There was a runner on. He had a 3-0 count, and Bobby Witt Jr. was behind him. 1 out, nobody on, 3-0 count. they're the superstar coming up to be the winning run at the plate, and the Royals are scrambling to get back in the playoff chase. And what does Mikey Yastrzemski do on a 3-0 count? He swings away and hits into a double play and took all the air out of the building. So for that, it cost you half a wop. I brought up the Cristian Javier. He threw 6 no-hit innings. Now, I've always been one to push to have players complete their no-hitter. It could be their moment. But I understand the Astros have proverbial bigger fish to fry right here. And it's funny, Cristian Javier has had 2 games where I can think of off the top of my head where he was taken out after 6 no-hit innings. One was in the World Series, Game 4 of the World Series in 2022. Again, the World Series, yes, it would be great if Cristian Javier joined Don Larson and Roy Halladay as the only people to throw a no-hitter in the postseason. But the Astros had bigger fish to fry. They were down 2-1 in that World Series. And that game where Javier threw 6 no-hit innings and Dusty Baker brought in a parade of relievers to have a combined no-hitter in Philadelphia was the moment that Dusty Baker essentially clinched his spot in the Hall of Fame for a manager who's had a great career but was constantly criticized for handling pitchers. To be able to maneuver a combined no-hitter that was essential to win that World Series, well, that did it for him. And for the Astros, well, they needed Cristian Javier healthy for October, not throwing a no-hitter in September. So this made all the sense in the world. And, I got an interesting, one people wrote to me, where is this here? Is this it? William Kumel, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it, 7824. The Astros are still considered kings of the AL West until they are not. For 7-8 years, the Astros have won the AL West. Well, yes, that's true. The one year they didn't was the COVID year when the A's did, but the Astros went to the LCS that year. I think people have been wanting to crown someone else because they want to have a new shiny toy, but the Astros are in first place. The Mariners are having a hard time getting out of their own way. And now you look, they have Javier is back and looks strong. They reacquired Carlos Correa. Alvarez is back. Yordan Alvarez is back in the lineup. It's starting to feel a little bit like the old gang is back together. And the Mariners, I think, may have lost their chance. I mean, look, a lot of things can happen in September, obviously. But the Blue Jays pitching staff suddenly looks vulnerable. The Detroit Tigers have had streaks where they look really great and streaks where they look really bad. The Red Sox, who lost, it was Paul Skeens. There's no shame in that, but they're streaky. The Yankees can only beat bad teams. They kick the snot out of the White Sox, and not a single person is impressed because that's what they do. I mean, I have a feeling by the time the dust settles, the Astros may have the most complete team. It's really going to see how they assemble this team and how things fit in September. But if they're healthy and they're getting contributions from Correa, they're getting contributions from Alvarez, they're getting contributions from Cristian Javier to go with the rest of the squad, the year after they lost Bregman, this is an Astros team that I think you should underestimate at your own peril. Now, Cristian Javier is obviously a pitcher that they're going to have to rely on if they want to go far this year. And that's, if he can pitch like he did yesterday, then it could smell like 2022 all over again. And once again, I mean, look, people are rooting against him because the stink of the cheating scandal still hangs over the team. And it will until the last player from that team is no longer on the squad. And you may not like that, Astros fans, but them's the breaks. But keep on winning and keep being the bad guy. And you know what? It could be a fun October for you. All right, let's hear from our good friends over at Upside. Are you still paying for full price for your gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with a free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my personal limited time code, which is SEASON, and get an extra 20 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just by buying gas you're going to buy anyway. At first, I thought this is too good to be true. But you know what? It is totally legit. And it is indeed too legit to quit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or get an e-gift card, Amazon, or other brands. Do not let this offer drive you by. Download the free Upside app now and use my limited time promo code SEASON for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code SEASON. Offers may vary by user and location. Go to Upside right now for terms and conditions. I love a complete game. I think a complete game is a lot of fun. I make no bones about it. I like it. I do like when a pitcher comes in there and just takes over the game, puts their thumbprint on it. And it's one of the things that makes baseball different from other sports in so many ways. Is this team's bad, this team's good. But wait a minute, who's pitching? Who's pitching? That's why I have the pitching lines up front. Well, the complete game is obviously becoming a thing of the past, and pitch counts and everything like that have taken over. And now you're considered a workhorse if you go 6 innings a game. And I am going to be a little bit of old man Sully here because I am going to go back to the game that I watched growing up. I'm not going to go back to the days of Bob Gibson and Sandy Koufax where they're throwing 168 pitches and throwing 25 complete games a year or anything like that. We're going back to the days of Grover Cleveland Alexander where you pitch 40 complete games a year. I'm not doing that. But I was over on baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth, the other day, and I was looking up something for a totally different topic. And I looked up something on one of the teams that I followed, one of the Red Sox teams that I followed growing up in the 1980s. And it was Yastrzemski's final year. And I was looking up something about Yastrzemski's final year for something in the, excuse me as I scratch my nose, the allergies are kicking in. I was looking at something that had nothing to do with this topic. But I noticed something. I noticed the Red Sox in a nondescript year, 1983 was a nondescript year, used fewer than 20 pitchers the entire season. Now, you look at teams now, some of them are using 20 pitchers a game. And you're seeing that the bullpens are getting completely worn down by the end of the year. They're being worn down by the end of the year. The idea of a position player pitching is not something that happens once or twice and it's kind of a gimmick. But maybe once a year a team would have a position player pitch, or even maybe not. They don't do it for years. And it's only done once in a while in a complete blowout game, and it's kind of funny. But now it's part of the strategy. When I see a team is losing 20-2 like it was the other day when the Rangers were kicking the snot out of the Angels, and I saw the score was 22, I just assumed that a middle infielder or a backup outfielder was pitching the final inning, and I was right. And you're seeing pitchers pitch very well, thank you very much, being on a roll, but being taken out after 6 innings. Like what happened when Fried was pitching great against the Red Sox last weekend and then was lifted. And you're seeing the bullpens are being gassed and a parade of pitchers being used every day. And I decided to go and do a little bit of homework for this. And I'm going to just sort of lay something out here. I went back to 1985. I pulled a Marty McFly and I went back to 1985. Why 1985? It was 40 years ago. 40 years ago. And I took a look at all 26 teams. There were only 26 teams at the time. There were no Rays, there were no Rockies, there were no Diamondbacks, and there was no Marlins. And the Nationals were called the Montreal Expos at the time. And I took a look at the number of pitchers, major league pitchers used by each team. Now, the St. Louis Cardinals won the National League pennant that year. And they probably should have won the World Series. If there was instant replay, they certainly would have had 2 outs in the 9th inning on the verge of clinching the World Series. Don Denkinger play. The Cardinals used 16 pitchers all year. All year. That includes minor league call-ups. That includes bringing up someone because of an injury. The Kansas City Royals, with a little help from Don Denkinger, but give the Royals credit, they took advantage of it and they won the final game 11-0, and they beat an outstanding Blue Jays team in the playoffs. The Royals used 14 pitchers all year. All year. The Toronto Blue Jays, who also made the playoffs that year, used 15 pitchers all year. That's it. That's the total number. And the Los Angeles Dodgers, who lost the NLCS to the St. Louis Cardinals, used 14 pitchers. There were 14 pitchers who pitched for the Los Angeles Dodgers in 1985. Total. Now you look, and I went down through all the 26 teams, there were 418 pitchers used all year by all 26 teams. That means on an average, the average number of pitchers used by a team that year was a little over 16. So let's round it down. Let's round it down to 16. Hell, you can round it up to 17 if you want. So it's 16.1 pitchers used by all 26 teams all year. The only teams to use more than 20, well, the Rangers used 20 right on the dot, and the Mariners used 21. The Rangers stunk that year, and the Mariners weren't much better. And if you looked at the complete games, of the 26 teams, only one team had fewer than 10 complete games. That were the Atlanta Braves, who were terrible. They had 9 complete games. The Minnesota Twins, who were nondescript in 1985, had 41 complete games. Each team averaged roughly 23 complete games per year in 1985. And what that means, that's not like every game's a complete game. It's 23 out of 162. Okay? That's about 15, roughly about 15%. Maybe my math's off, but that just means, about every other week you'd have a complete game. About every other week, someone gave the bullpen the night off. Let's compare that to now. Remember I mentioned the Dodgers used 14 pitchers when they won the division in 1985. They've used 39 pitchers this year and have had 0 complete games. 0. I mentioned the Kansas City Royals used 14. Well, they've only used 25 pitchers this year. All right. The New York Mets had a terrific team in 1985. They barely missed the playoffs. They lost to the Cardinals, who were in the East, which makes no sense. Cincinnati was in the West. St. Louis was in the East. Baseball geography lessons were terrible. But the Mets had a terrific team that year. Doc Gooden had his career year. Ron Darling. They had a solid pitching staff. They used 17 pitchers all year long. This year, as of this recording, they've used 43 and have had 1 complete game. 1. And you go up and down. I mean, the Angels, who had a solid year in 85, 19 pitchers that year, they've used 36 this year. The Nationals have a relatively low one this year. It's 27. But the Atlanta Braves used 14 pitchers in 1985. They've used 40 this year. The average number of pitchers used by Major League Baseball in 2025 is, using all 30 teams, is 30. A little more than 30. It was 16 40 years ago, and it's 30 now. And there have been 25 complete games total. Total. Not average. The Yankees don't have a complete game. The Brewers don't have a complete game. The Royals don't have a complete game. The Angels don't have a complete game. The White Sox don't have a complete game. The A's don't have a complete game. The Mariners don't have a complete game. The Nationals don't have a complete game. The Cubs don't have a complete game. The Dodgers don't have a complete game. Colorado doesn't have a complete game. Say that 3 times fast. Arizona doesn't. Neither does Miami. 25 total. The Yankees had 25 in 1985. The Twins had 41. And there have been 25 total. Now, that's just breaking that. This is, I'm not, without making a statement. There's something about that that just feels weird. Something seismic has happened. And we're seeing pitchers breaking down, a parade of pitchers being used each game. And by the time we stagger to October, it's no longer looking at which team has a great pitching staff that are going to match up, but it's more of a battle of attrition. Which team has the fewest number of injuries and is the least damaged? And there's something about that I do want to bring up because it leads me to asking questions about what is valued in pitching, how pitchers are handled, and maybe we need to start thinking about the value of not only the complete game, but pushing that starting pitcher a little bit more, not because of toughness, but because of survival. And hey, I just want to bring this up before we head to commercial. I've got an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make our favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Anyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link down there in the show notes. Okay, let's hear from our good friends over at Monarch Money. People can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, and whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And if you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization for your spending, and you can finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. And do you know what? Sometimes you find out you're spending more than you're expecting. Do you have apps and subscriptions you forgot all about that's sucking a little bit here, $60 here, $50 there? That all adds up. And you know what? You can identify that maybe you're not saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Maximizing investment, increasing your savings rates, easily reviewing finances with your partner and financial advisor. Do you know what? It can help you create long-term goals. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On MLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com if you use the code Locked On MLB. I think I'm bringing this up because the complete game had a purpose beyond just showing a little bit of machismo. One thing it does, it gives the bullpen the night off. One of the reasons you're seeing these giant parade of pitchers is if you don't have your starting pitcher go more than 6 innings, and that's considered a monumental feat these days, then you're going to have worn out arms. I'll never understand why people who completely live and die by the method of 2 times through the order, you're in complete turn, but the third time the order, the averages and the OPS go up, so you're better off bringing a reliever. I understand that if you're playing a video game or if you're playing one game, like Game 7 of the World Series. Yeah, you're going to manage Game 7 of the World Series a lot differently than any other game. I get that. But over the course of a year, to say that the starting pitcher isn't even going to mentally get through that third time through the order, I'm not blaming the pitchers. They're not being trained to do so. They're not being trained in the minor leagues to do that because they're too scared. Everyone's too scared that everyone's arm is going to explode. I'll get to that in a second too. I heard Ken Rosenthal in an interview saying that one thing he would do if he ran a team is he would work on the pitchers to muscle through one more time through the order, to learn, okay, I've done this. I now got to work on my ability to outsmart the hitter. I don't, a pitcher who outthinks the batter as opposed to constantly blowing them away, I don't think is valued anymore. Arguably the best pitcher I ever saw in my life. And notice how I said that. Not the most talented, not the most dynamic. Arguably the best pitcher I've ever seen in my life is Greg Maddux. And I think he belongs in any conversation for greatest pitcher of all time, not just because his stats were sky high, but he was doing it in the middle of the steroid era. And he wasn't doing it by throwing a ball 180 miles an hour. He was outsmarting the batter all the time, working his way through the working his way through the lineup through the third or fourth time and figure out how are we going to outsmart the hitter. Instead of, well, it'd be easier if we just brought in a reliever. Yeah, but you know what? That's under the assumption that the reliever is frozen in carbonite and not at all tired from being used every GD day. And I said GD because I do not want an explicit rating on this show. If the idea that there are fewer complete games this year than there are franchises, which means that the bullpen, with the exception of 25 times, had to be turned to. When I hear people talking about if you look at a pitcher's stats and you say, well, he's actually more lucky than good, that his stats show that he's actually should have a worse record than he really does. He should have a higher ERA than he really does. So he's actually lucky. You hear people say that when breaking down people's stats, and they talk about a pitcher his stats are misleading. He's got a good record. He's got a low ERA. But if you look at the advanced stats, he should be hit harder. He should be letting up more runs. Why is that looked on as a bad quality? Don't you want to have a pitcher who knows how to muscle through a bad inning, who knows how to win when their stuff isn't optimal? Now we're taking out pitchers when their stuff is optimum. But if you have an ace pitcher, part of the job of an ace pitcher, your number one pitcher, your number one starter, part of the job is hand the ball to them and give the bullpen at least most of the night off. And if that means muscling through one more time through the order, that may save an inning here or an inning there from a worn out bullpen. Maybe you don't always draft pitchers based upon, hey, they throw ball 100-mile-an-hour. Me know that good. Instead of saying, who's the smart pitcher? Who knows how to win when they don't have their best stuff? Because I talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we mourned the loss of the late Jim Clancy, who was part of that Toronto Blue Jays team that won the American League East in 1985, and through many of the complete games in that 1985. There is a value to having someone who's, all right, he's not going to win the Cy Young Award, but he's going to be 7 or 8 innings. We're seeing, how many times do we see like the trade deadline is basically, we got to grab more arms. We're wearing them down. Yeah, you're using 40 pitchers a year when you used to use 15. And we're doing this when our knowledge of arms are better, our knowledge of physiology is better, our medicine is better, our surgeries are better. The nutrition these pitchers have, the eyes that we have on these pitchers are much, much stronger. And yet when a Mizorowski or a Skeens bursts on the scene, everyone's rubbing their hands like they're watching someone about to snip a wire while disarming a bomb, because their arm's going to explode at any minute. The idea of having Skeens throw a complete game is almost horrifying to people. And Mizorowski, hell, he's not allowed to pitch 5. Now I guess he is, but you understand what I'm saying. The complete game had something to do more than machismo. It served a purpose. Why are pitchers less healthy now than they were before? I think it's because the guy throwing 100 miles an hour was considered the freak. Was considered, oh my God, I can't believe that. And the rest of them were people who, all right, well, let's muscle through and figure out how to win this. Well, me draft him because me saw radar gun. Okay. And also me saw his arm explode. Maybe we start to do this within a farm system. And I believe the team that starts to do this from the subatomic level, from when you draft them and bring them up, we're going to show you, we're going to teach you how to muscle through, how to win games when you don't have your best stuff. His stuff not good. Me bringing reliever, yeah. And gee, why are our relievers all worn out? Why does our training room look like the MASH 4077? How about that for an up-to-date reference? In 40 years, the number of pitchers used by each team has almost doubled, and the number of complete games have gone from each team averaging 23 complete games a year to the whole league having 25. And we're not seeing an increase of stamina from the pitchers, and we're seeing nothing but injuries. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm wrong in making these observations and saying this is something we have to start to teach. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it is called these days. And, I have one other thing I have to, the new trivia question is on this particular topic. Where is it here? Who is the only Rays pitcher to throw 10 or more complete games in a season? Because the Rays are a new franchise. Weren't mentioned then. So there you go. Hey, there's some exciting news for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present the College Football Kickoff, your ultimate football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local expert, a college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Big news for us. Big news for me. I'm wrapping up today's show. So let's get the trivia question off of there. Talking about the Astros getting the band back together and me lamenting the loss of the complete game. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm yours, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.